Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye is at the Neenah Public Library. We're interviewing candidates for the 2014 election. We're interviewing Mike Rohrkaste. He's from Neenah. He's a Republican candidate in the 55th Assembly District. Mike, welcome back to Wisconsin Eye.
Thanks, Steve. I'm glad to be here. And by the way, Rohrkaste, it rhymes with forecast. And I learned that doing doors, and I continue to use that, so it helped people remember how to pronounce my name.
I need that help. Thank you.
There you go.
Programming note, Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. Mike, I don't usually do this, but we just interviewed your opponent, and I want to let's open the conversation this way. He said generally you have agreed with Governor Walker's policies over the last 4 years, Act 10, etc. Is that a fair characterization? I do
support what Governor Walker did with Act 10, and I also support many of the initiatives that have been done to create jobs, to ensure that we continue to have good schools, and then just proper fiscal responsibility by our state government, particularly in terms of having a balanced budget, and also in lowering taxes and putting more pay into people's hands in everyday life.
I think you're saying, implying that you'd be a rubber stamp for the governor if you win on November 4. Response?
Well, I guess again, my platform is I want to do things that will help create jobs. I want to do things that will continue to have strong education, both public and private, and charter schools. I also again want to ensure that our state government spends responsibly, that we get waste out of the system, that we use our tax dollars more effectively. So if that's supporting the governor, then that's what I want to do. If the governor, and the Governor Walker seems to be very supportive of those initiatives, but to call me a rubber stamp, no. I mean, I've learned that I need to evaluate every situation and do what the people in this district, think is going to be most important, is going to have the best impact on the district and the state of Wisconsin.
No, go ahead. Well, I want to come back to some of the issues that you just mentioned. Let's talk about one major decision in the next budget is going to be funding public schools.
Yes.
Is it time for a new school aid formula, given the complaints of the rural districts?
That's an area that I would like to research more. I mean, I understand that there is an issue between some of the rural districts and the city districts, and we may need to take a look at something. But again, it's something I would like to research more. I understand that issue does exist out there.
And another big question is what to do with the school choice and voucher program. Continue to expand it?
I am a proponent of school choice. I think that it's what's most important here is the kids, and I mean we need to provide for each child what the best educational opportunity is for each boy and girl, and for those parents to have choices. And I think the bulk of the kids do go to public school, and we have great public schools in this area, and we want to continue. But also, if parents want to make that choice of sending their kids to a private school or to a charter school, I think that we need to give those choices to parents. So I do support the voucher program. I support elimination of the cap of the voucher program. I do want to keep, though, the income limitations in place, in order to get the voucher. I think that that's an important point that I want to make.
It was only a month or two ago where Governor Walker called on the Senate and the Assembly to withdraw or repeal the Common Core standards. Mm-hmm. Is the governor right, sir?
I think that the issue is we want to have the best education for our kids. And I think that even here in our area, the Neenah School District, for example, has taken Common Core and has actually, I think, developed maybe a better standard or even higher standards. And they've taken Common Core practices and adapted that to each kid in the particular district, kids that may be, in the middle or above, and they've really done, I think, a very nice job. When you look at Common Core, what I see as important is that school decisions or curriculum decisions are best left to local parents, educators, and local school boards. And I think that's what we need. So I think that there is opportunities to make Common Core better. That's what we have to do, is make it better, come up with a better solution.
Since we talked prior to the primary, the Wisconsin Taxpayer Alliance has come up with this projection on transportation funding.
Yes.
If we fund at the 2013 levels for 10 years, we're going to be $2 billion short. How should that deficit be made up, sir?
I think we're going to have to take a very hard look at that. I mean, obviously, from an infrastructure standpoint, we've got to ensure that we continue to have very strong infrastructure in this state. If we're going to retain jobs, retain businesses here, and encourage businesses to move to Wisconsin if we don't have the right infrastructure, or if we don't have the right infrastructure for tourism, for people to come into our state or students to come into our state. So it's an extremely important issue. I understand that the deficit is out there. We are going to need to figure out a way to do that. There's currently a joint task force between local business leaders and state government officials, and I am optimistic that they will come up with a good solution that can be worked through that will benefit everybody.
2 years ago, some of the things recommended were raising the gas tax, indexing the gas tax, making us pay more for driver's licenses. Are you open to those, sir? I
go back to this task force. I think we need to get this to be a joint solution between business leaders and government leaders, and then obviously people in our districts as well, and get people feedback from them as well. But we need to come up with a solution. So I mean, I think we need to look at various solutions, and that's what that task force is doing. And in my position right now, I'm still running for the assembly, but once I would get into the assembly, then I would delve into that into a much deeper level.
Question on health care. As you know, 1 in 5 Wisconsin residents gets their health care from our Medicaid program.
Yes.
The American Hospital Association says Wisconsin's reimbursement rates for Medicaid are the second lowest in the nation. If you've studied the issue, do you think those should be increased in the next budget?
I am aware of that, and Wisconsin's reimbursement rates are at the very lower end in the U.S., and I do believe that we need to look at increasing those rates, because what happens on a practical level is those extra costs just basically get funneled back into to employer costs here in the area. So we're paying for it one way or another. So I do believe that we should be looking at those reimbursement rates over time. Obviously, we need to do it always within a context of fiscal responsibility and what we can afford, but I am supportive of looking at that, yes.
One of the first bills that passed last session, as you know, gave Giebig Taconite the right to apply for a permit for an open pit iron mine in Ashland and Iron counties. Would you have voted for that?
I mean, I'm an outdoors person, or I do a lot of things outdoors, anywhere from hunting to boating. I like to hike, done camping, particularly when our kids were younger. I'll answer your question here in a second, but I wanted to just state that, I mean, the environment and the state of, our natural resources in Wisconsin are extremely important, but also is job creation. So yes, I would have supported it, but I also would want to ensure that the work that is done, and I'm sure that it will be done responsibly and taking into consideration our natural resources and not doing anything to hurt the area in any way. We have to create jobs. That's by far one of the most important things that we can do. But we also have to ensure that we don't hurt our natural resources for our kids, for our families, and for our tourism business that relies on people to come in to have the great lakes, rivers, and parks that we have.
One other question on a related issue: where does the balance lie in regulating our frac sand mining industry?
Well, again,
local control or a state law preempting writing state standards?
Yeah, that I would have to research that more. It isn't something that's, I think, affected the 55th district as much. Okay. I'm aware of the issue, but I would, before I'd answer more definitively, I really would like to research that issue more.
Okay. There was a bill that would legalize medical marijuana, and of course traveling with that is the experience of Colorado, state of Washington. Recreational use of marijuana, your positions?
Being an HR person and just in my life, I've seen the negative impacts of drugs, of illegal drugs, or the abuse of legal drugs, and that includes marijuana. I've seen it in the workplace. I've seen where it can cause productivity issues, safety issues, so I am opposed to legalizing marijuana.
It was an issue in the Democratic primary for Attorney General. First offense, drunken driving, should it be a crime?
I think current state law provides that for suspension, which I support. I think that the minimum their license gets suspended for 6 months. I think what should be considered adding in on a first offense is maybe some form of more mandatory treatment of mental health issues, or of what caused this particular substance abuse event that led to the drunk driving event. I'm on the board of the Samaritan's Counseling Center, and they are a mental health services provider. And much of substance abuse gets back to maybe mental health issues. And I think we got to, again, deal with the root cause, particularly for those first offenders, before we would treat it as a crime. Obviously, for repeat offenders, I think we need to be more aggressive.
You said at the outset that you're in this about protecting and creating jobs. What hasn't been tried yet?
Well, I think a couple of things. One's in the works. One example, I think, is that we need to continue to increase funding for advertising the value of tourism in the state, and even taking that a little more specifically to our district, to expand, getting international status for our Outagamie Airport. That would bring jobs. We would bring customs officials into there. We would help Rockwell in terms of servicing airplanes that would come in, and you would also help the tourism in terms of this being an international destination spot. So that would be one particular area. I think also that what our state could do differently than it has in the past is offer more incentives for companies outside of Wisconsin to come in. I think that we need to get more competitive in terms of offering some tax breaks to companies to come in the first few years of their when they get in here, in order for them to relocate. We don't do as much as some other states do in the U.S.
With your experience in private business, I want to ask you this question. How did you respond to the debate, the controversy in the last year over outsourcing?
Well, it's outsourcing is always, companies have to figure out the best place to make their products, and they have to have several things. They not only have to look at cost, but they have to look at the workforce, the skilled labor. I think the best thing that companies can do to keep jobs here in Wisconsin is to ensure that we continue to have a better tax environment for both individuals and business, but also that we really increase the skill level of our workforce here in the area. Our Fox Valley Technical College, our four-year degree schools, and our high schools have really gotten on board the last few years, but in terms of helping create better skilled people coming into the workforce. But I think there's even more that we can do. We need to get all businesses to partner with those schools, whether it's on welding, whether it's on trades type like plumbing, like machinist type work, but also into IT. I recently talking with an individual for a large local employer. They have 50-some IT openings that they cannot fill because they can't find the right skilled people. And that's where we need to bridge education with business, and also to look at people who've been displaced out of the jobs here in the area and get them retrained into some of these areas that then they can go find jobs. And these are good paying jobs. These are $40,000 to $100,000 a year jobs. So these are not minimum wage positions.
Well, talking about minimum wage, there's calls in Washington and Madison to raise it. Your position on that?
Being a human resources person for, in the business world, I think the best way to determine wages is just like it's a free market, and we need to let the market determine what, through supply and demand. And I think you would find that most jobs here in the area pay above a minimum wage, and I think that actually if we increase it could have a detrimental effect on jobs, particularly for college-age students, for high school workers that want to work part-time, and also for people that work in not-for-profit businesses. Many of those times they are working part-time, and if all of a sudden you had to increase those to not-for-profits that operate on shoestring budgets, they're either going to have to increase their whatever rates, they're going to have to try to get more contributions, or they're going to have to potentially cut back either on workers or hours, and I don't see those as good, solvable issues. I think the way to get, higher income in the area is to get higher paying jobs here, and that's by increasing the skill level of our workforce. And
finally, I asked you to respond to a comment made by your opponent. Do you want to highlight any differences between you and your opponent on November 4?
Well, I think that there are several. I want to focus on continued tax reform to ensure that we continue to be able to create and grow more jobs here in the area. I am a very strong supporter of school, but of school choice, and I think that it is very important that parents have multiple choices, the best thing for each of their sons and daughters. I think that my background in coming out of two very successful local companies here in the Fox cities, I've seen jobs, how they've been created by companies developing the right products and getting the skills for our workforce by working with Fox Valley Technical College or working with our local high schools and colleges to hire kids either as interns and then as full-time. So I've seen how that we can partner with education. So I think my background will help our area to continue to be a very prosperous area, and also my full-time commitment to the area. I will be accessible to everybody here in the district, and I will be able to respond to their particular issues and concerns.
Thank you. Mike Rohrkaste.
Rhymes with
Rohrkaste.
Got it. Yeah, okay.
Of Neenah is a Republican candidate in the 55th Assembly District. The election is November 4. Mike, thanks for talking to Wisconsin.
Steve, thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.